Hello, everyone. Welcome to an amazing Brooklyn Book Festival virtual festival day event. My name is Adam Vitcavage. I am the founder and host of Debutiful, which is a website and podcast where all I do is talk to debut writers about their books, why they write, how they write, the ups and downs of becoming a debut writer. And you can check that out at debutiful.net for so many things about debut writers. And I am excited to be here with four amazing debut writers, Jinwoo Park, Iryn Tushabe, Ella Alexander, and Aurora Stewart de Peña. Before we get started, I want to let you know that all their books are available to be purchased in links that will be put in the chat for you all to buy and support these writers. Because if you buy their books, the chances are they will get more book deals in the future. So buy their books now so they can keep writing. Um, I'll read all of your bios in a second, but I would love if you can just say hello and like introduce yourself. On my podcast, I like to ask writers, who are you outside of reading and writing? So before I read your official bios, I want you to just go ahead and introduce yourselves and say hi to the audience. We'll start with Ella because you're in my top left.
Hi. I'm Ella, obviously. Um, my book first or me first or just
Yeah,
whatever.
you. Who are you?
That's not what we all want to know. Uh, I live in Berlin, but I'm from America originally. I'm from LA. Um, I I'm not really sure, sorry.
That's good. How long have you been in Berlin?
3 years.
3 years. We'll come back to that and why you moved and how and when you write.
Don't
Uh,
like to drive and I can't afford New York.
that's a great answer because who can afford New York? Even though we're at Brooklyn Book Fest, we're virtual for a reason because we want to be in our cities.
Right.
Yeah, Aurora, say hi to you, to the audience. Who are you? What are you all about?
My name is Aurora. I live in Toronto. I am a very avid balcony gardener. I've been trying to keep geraniums alive during the heat wave of 2025. It's been challenging. Most of my time has been focused on that. And yeah, reading and writing, obviously, shopping for vintage dresses. I'm trying to think of anything non-floral, but yeah, I do
Flowers. I
a
love it.
bunch of stuff. Yeah.
I love it. I thank so much. Irene, who are you? What are you all about outside of reading and writing and all that jazz?
Thanks, Adam. I'm um I'm a voracious reader. I love to read a ton. I love to read more than I love to write. Um, I live in Saskatchewan in a small city called Regina. Um, and I am a mother. I've got two kids. Originally, I come from a tiny, tiny village near Chibale National Park in Western Uganda. And I think, like in all my writing, I'm always trying to go back there.
I love it. And we'll dive into that. And then Jinwoo, our last writer who has to tell us about yourself. You get to close out our first question. Who are you?
Yeah. So I, like the other two, also live in Canada. I'm in Montreal, and I suppose outside of I bounced around here and there ever since I moved to Canada at the age of 11 from Korea, and I was one time in Vancouver, one time in Long Island, and then I also was living in London for a couple years, London, UK, in case
Mhm.
there is a little bit of confusion. And then yeah, so and on my off time, I am a little too online on my TikTok or Instagram as I'm actively talking about like Korean culture and history and everything else there, and also just riding my cargo bike around and giving car people condescending looks as I speed past them in traffic. So yeah.
I love it. I always like to ask writers who they are because I think, you're people first. You've spent most of your life not as a debut writer, but now you're all debut writers. I'll read your official bios and we'll dive into it. Jinwoo Park is a Korean Canadian writer based in Montreal. He's completed a master's degree in creative writing at the University of Oxford and currently works as a marketer in the tech industry. In 2021, he won the Jim Wong Chu Emerging Writers Award. His debut novel, Oxford Soju Club, comes out later this month. Jinwoo, thanks for being here. Iryn Tushabe is a Ugandan-Canadian writer and journalist. Her creative nonfiction has appeared in Briar Patch Magazine, Ada, Prairies North, and elsewhere. Her short fiction has been published in Grain Magazine, Carter V. Cooper Short Fiction Anthology, and the Journey Prize Stories. She won the City of Regina Writing Award in 2020 and 2024 and was a finalist for the Kane Prize in African Writing in 2021. Like she mentioned earlier, she lives in Regina. Irene, thanks so much for being here. Aurora Stewart de Peña is a writer. Her short stories, her essays have appeared in Vice, Real Life Magazine, The Globe, and The Mail. Her fiction and poetry have appeared in The Ex-Puritan and Little Brother. Her plays have been performed in Toronto at Buddy's, in Bad Times, Factory Theater, and other theaters all throughout, as well as summer works and in New York with Brooklyn College and La Mama. She currently is developing a play with Voyage Theater in New York. Her debut novel, Julius Julius, was published in June of 2025. Aurora, thanks so much for being here. And finally, she kicked us off, and now she's last in my bio reading. Ella Alexander is a writer from Los Angeles, living in Berlin. Her debut novel, The Sleeping Land, came out earlier in 2025. Ella, thanks so much for being here. You four, like I said, our debuts, your books are out, are coming out, and I had you pitch yourselves, but now I want you to pitch your books to the audience. I think Kirkus or whoever, they like to say what the book's about. People like me like to write little blurbs, and people don't really know what the books are about until the authors can share themselves. So Jinwoo, I want to start with you. What's your book about? Like, how do you pitch it to your friends and family?
Okay. Well, on the surface, it's an espionage novel set in Oxford involving a North Korean, a South Korean, and a Korean American. But beneath that, it's actually notes from my self-therapy, in which, through my protagonist, I explore the various masks that I had personally accumulated in my time as a Korean immigrant in a quest to find my authentic self. And I would say this is a book that sort of healed me in that process. And now it's out for other people to read and enjoy. Yeah.
Amazing. Irene, how about you? What do you tell your friends and family what Everything is Fine Here is all about?
Yeah, Everything is Fine Here is about two sisters, two siblings that live in Uganda, contemporary Uganda. One of them is a teenager and she's at this old girls boarding school, and her older sister, Mbabazi, is much older than her, has just returned from Canada where she was becoming an infertility expert. And what her younger sister doesn't know is that her older sister has been living with her lesbian partner in the city for 6 years. And I suppose now Mbabazi is kind of ready to tell her younger sister about this life she's been living. So she comes to visit her Aine at her all-girls boarding school, and it's Careers Day. She's delivering that year's Careers Day keynote speech, and she brings her partner along. And sort of throughout the weekend, they become friends. But Aine just realizes that her sister is lesbian in a country where it is illegal, it's criminalized to be that. So I guess throughout the novel, kind of, she promises she won't tell the parents, but she's a teenager and not good at keeping secrets, and she kind of so she lets it loose somehow. And their mother, who is intensely Christian, issues these ultimatums, and I suppose kind of it culminates in Aine leaving the family home and moving to the city to be with Mbabazi and Achen, her partner, and it kind of forces the mother to think about how much she's willing to lose in the name of just like maintaining her Christianity, I suppose. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Aurora, how about you? How do you pitch Julius Julius to friends, family, random people on the street, or on Zoom virtual events?
I tell them that it is a way for me to work out the absurdity of having worked in advertising for 13 years. Julius Julius is a story of a fictional 3,000-year-old ad agency founded in ancient Pompeii. It's told in 3 parts, 3 different voices. And it talks about the sort of the ghosts that haunt the agency and the sort of legendary campaigns that built the agency and the cave upon which the agency is founded. And I often talk about how it is about people sort of coming to terms with what advertising or any sort of creative economy asks of them, which is to bring this sort of very tender, creative part of yourself to a workplace that ultimately thrives in like gaining as much value for shareholders as possible. So it is absurdist, it's a magical realist book, and it is about the sort of divisions and splits we make within ourselves in order to go to work and earn a living in the creative economy.
I love it. Okay, so we have some ad marketing people on this Zoom all together. I like that. That's also what I work in my day job. Thank you so much. Ella, I put you on the spot first. I'm having you go last. What's the Sleeping Land about? What do you pitch it to your friends and family across the pond in Berlin and in LA? How do you pitch it?
So it's about a group of archaeologists from Canada. Actually, it's funny you all live in I don't. They're from Canada and they go to Siberia shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union. And they kind of start a dig and people are just warning them like just you don't want to go there. It's occupied. But they don't listen and kind of things spiral out of control from there. I think the underlying theme, the thing that I was most interested in was this kind of like communication and miscommunication, both between cultures and just between individuals. I feel like as a writer, it's, obviously I'm quite interested in like how we translate our underlying feelings and desires into language. And I do feel that so much gets lost, and I think that's what a lot of the book is about, and even the humor in that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for telling us what your books are about. I just always like to ground audiences in that because I think with debuts, people hop on calls and they're not sure what the books are about or who the writers are. And so everyone in the audience, you just met all these writers and what their books are about. Please put questions in the Q&A. I'll get to them. Trust me, I love audience questions. But first, I want to ask all of you, and anyone could jump in first. A question I get with Debutiful listeners and readers is, what the heck is the publishing journey all about? What are the ups and downs? So I want to just open it up to what surprised you about from finished manuscript to book coming out? What were the ups and downs? What surprised you? What do you want people who are writing to know what to expect? So whoever wants to jump in.
I mean, honestly, I feel like in terms of what's changed, I'm kind of surprised at how little has changed, I feel like probably for the rest of you as well, this has been like a lifelong dream. And I'm so happy that my book is out and very proud. But at the same time, it's kind of like you're still just living your life, it's basically the same.
I suppose the thing that surprised me most of all is how what I thought the book was about, the most important things about the book to me while I wrote it, is not what people have picked up on. The questions they've asked me aren't ones that I expected. And I suppose what that kind of has shown me is that when you write a thing and you put it out there in the world, that then it's just like it's not your story anymore, like it's everybody's, and it's not your job to tell them how to read it, how to just like, no, this is not what it's about. But like people can just interpret it how they like. And then that becomes a different level for me to enjoy the work, is by hearing how other people are responding to it, the sorts of conversations it sparks. That's been just really beautiful for me to experience. And it continues to be.
Okay, I'll go. I'll go next. So, I totally agree with the two earlier responses. By the way, I felt that too. And aside from just being astonished at how much the book changes from the accepted manuscript to the actual published version, from the moment you sign the contract to like when it actually comes out. It was night and day, the difference. One thing right now that I'm most surprised by very pleasantly is just how helpful everyone is. So I'm organizing and funding my own book tour right now across Canada and the US. I'm going to be in Ottawa tomorrow. I'm going to be in like Vancouver the 2 days after that. And everyone is so like just everyone wants to help. I've like everyone that I've pitched to in terms of, to be my conversation partner for venues and things like that. They're all like, this is the part of being part of the literary citizenry. And then everyone just kind of, also says that with the assumption that like I am going to then pay it forward, right? Like to other people who will come after me or with me. So it's that sense of community that I've never really felt before from any other like occupation or profession really before this. So yeah, just love that.
I think I was so surprised that people were actually reading it. Like I would like get tagged in an Instagram post and it would be a stranger in Dallas, Texas reading my book or someone in London, England. And I felt so grateful that they had, and I'm assuming also people like pick it up and read it and don't like it, but I feel so grateful to understand that people are picking it up, engaging with it, and I don't even know them and they don't care about me. They don't, they don't like know my mom or anything. And so that's a really wonderful feeling. And I think the journey to publishing was full of surprises. It was full of surprises. I had initially a publisher who was so excited about the manuscript, and then they thought they couldn't publish it for reasons of like format, and then they got back to me and they could. So it was like a really sort of winding road to publication. So being in a place where it's out in the world after many sort of curving roads and rocks in the path feels pretty amazing. And it's also funny how like loud it is around you for a little while and then how totally quiet you're just like on your couch reading other books, and your book's out in the world is one of those books. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah. I talk to hundreds of debut writers a year at this point, and it's usually before publication, and it's like, how are you feeling? And everyone's like, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And then, I DM them after their book's out, and I was like, how's it going? They're like, hey, it's just another day. We're just rocking and rolling. Uh, so I feel like that's an important thing for all writers to know. There's going to be a point if you have a book coming out, you want to throw up every day. Jinwoo, you mentioned community and like literary citizenship, and I want to open this up to everyone. How has like your communities, like Ella, I know you went from LA to Berlin. The rest of you are Canadian, but Irene, you're from Africa originally. How has community from where you were from to where you are now um, played a role in how you write and how you connect with each other? I'll ask Jinwoo to start so we could avoid awkward silences. I'll start calling on you all like we're
Yeah,
in school.
yeah, sure. Well, I would say I have multiple communities. I belong to multiple communities. So like, one community I belong to is obviously the literary community. But in Montreal, it's as like a Korean or even like an Asian Canadian author in Montreal, it's a little tough to find community. So the way I've sort of circumvented that is I've found community with people online, right? So there's Tiger Bomb, which is a Korean writers community that has a Discord and meets every now and then. So and there's also like a debut writers Discord. So like I've joined as well. So there are these online communities I found to share tips with, to sort of to talk about and then like exchange like drafts with and stuff like that. So there's in terms of like the writing process or like how it affected my work, I would say, yeah, like these communities have helped me to um, refine my writing, I guess, and then sort of get tips on the process, get more like polished advice on the process, but also like there's like I'm also a translator as well. So that has also been very helpful because a lot of translators have a very special eye on how they look at language. And because the book itself, Oxford Soju Club, it's very Korean. It's a very Korean book set in the UK. There were all these like cultural aspects that I was able to sort of like, for instance, when I would ask people like, "Hey, how would like I have this word, I can't really like I can't explain it. If I'll need a footnote or I'll need a paragraph," and the translators would be like, "No, just say the thing and just build a context around it. Like you don't need to. If you need to explain it, like that kills it. People can Google also, you know." So that kind of perspective really helped me out. So yeah, I would say those two are the most significant communities I've been affected by. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Irene, how about you? Because you have moved, and your novel moves between place and continent, and where you're writing isn't where your setting is necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I became a writer after I had been living in Canada for about 9 years. And around that point, I realized that I was starting to forget my language, my mother tongue. And it gave me kind of, existential panic because, what else do you lose if you forget bits of your mother tongue? And so I started by actually translating these little folk stories that we used to tell each other a long time ago around the fire. And I would just translate them from my language to English, kind of as a way to salvage kind of what had been lost. And then at some point I thought, I'll write creatively and I'll submit. But then also I was writing in Canada and all of my stories were set in Uganda and not just even in the capital, but in rural Uganda. And it just seemed like, who cares about that? And I was trying then, I guess, at the beginning to get African eyes on my stories, kind of forget the complexity of being someone who writes here and edited by writers, Canadian editors. They have issues with the work to begin with, but I just always thought if I can get Africans to read my work, that can be my audience, and that can be, oh, honestly, that's who I'm always writing for. And so that became kind of it's a challenge that I continue to navigate, just to always try to find ways like that how I submitted my story to the Kane Prize. I just wanted to get attention, to get people from home to read my work. And that's been wonderful and also a little bit complicated. It continues to be like when I live halfway across the world, and yet all my stories are really always set in Uganda. It's just always the challenges that come with that, and what the Western reader knows about Uganda, for example. So then I'm constantly being asked the anti-homosexuality law because there is the lesbian relationship in the book, and it's just like it blows up, like that part of the book blows up, even if the narrator really is just like this teenage girl who's struggling with teenage problems. Um, but it's great because then I get to think about these things that I never thought about that are important to other people, and then it adds to the conversation because you don't get the full picture even of the anti-homosexuality law through the news, through sound bites and headlines. So then the novel gets to do that and kind of cross cultures in that way.
Mm-hmm. And your two books that just answered the cross culture, especially Aurora, your book is like you're Canadian. It's a Canadian book. So it doesn't really cross culture, but I'm curious like how your community, especially because I think you mentioned like Dallas, Texas, someone who's reading your book, right? I think a lot of Americans, especially and Brooklynites, maybe for this who are listening in, are like everything revolves around us. How do you feel coming as like a Canadian author into like how's your community built around you?
I mean, I would argue that the book does cross culture and I cross culture because I'm Canadian, but my mom's family is from Cuba. And so I was born and raised here, but that's still part of me. And the book also, you know, the book is sort of set out of time and out of place. And I think I'm going to say something so ridiculous right now, but like there is a broader sort of advertising community because the way that agencies and big holdcos are structured, is international. And so thinking about that world involves, I think, thinking a little bit globally. And if you know, you get sort of into the book, it talks about advertising and products that have developed all over the world and campaigns that have developed all over the world. And that's both sort of like developed all over the world in a predatory way and developed all over the world in a sort of practical way. But I think I work a lot in New York, particularly in theater. And I think coming in is really interesting because there is, I think, a way that New Yorkers see Canadians. There is a way that New Yorkers see Canadians as very sort of gentle and practical. And I think it's an interesting thing to try and sort of like dimensionalize yourself as a Canadian coming into work in New York and to be an author in New York. You know, we're a big swath of land. Like you have the East Coast to the West Coast on the call, and so those are all very different experiences. Those are all very different experiences of being Canadian. It's different to be in Toronto than in Regina. So I think it is trying to communicate the breadth of yourself, the breadth of yourself and the breadth of your work and the sort of global aspect of your work and your identity to New York audiences sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And Ella, you're a base or from Los Angeles, living in Berlin, wrote about Canadians going to the Soviet Union. How how and why did that happen? And also, did you have communities in those areas, or yeah, talk about like how this book came to be.
Um, so the reason they're Canadian, I feel a bit bad saying this in front of a lot of Canadians. I didn't want them to be American because I didn't want the whole book to be Russia versus America. Canada is definitely very culturally distinct from America, but they're also very close in some ways. And you know, I've spent some time in Canada. I know enough Canadians that I felt I could kind of pull it off. And yeah, I tend to write a lot just from imagination. Like I don't necessarily write anything that's autobiographical, like at all. But in terms of I think I did grow up in this very kind of cross-cultural way, so it didn't feel like super fantastical having all these different places involved. You know, my family, they're all in academia, and the book is also set in academia. And that is, like Aurora said about advertising, like a very international community. You are just constantly meeting people from different places. And I have a very good friend who's from Russia and like helped me with some of the cultural things and the language. We were actually going to go on the Trans-Siberian Railroad down to Siberia together, and then the war happened and we didn't want to be arrested, so we did not do that. But yeah, I do think I think that there is such a thing as this kind of like culture of people who are kind of like not really fully from anywhere. Like you're just like, oh yeah, well I've lived here and there and here, and all your friends are from different places, and and you have this kind of culture that's distinct to it, where you kind of speak in this kind of specific way to each other, and I think the book kind of captures that to a degree.
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of mentioned that about like place, and I am curious. This is kind of a follow-up to what everyone has already said, though, about writing about place when you're not there. Or I'll start with you because I think this might be the hardest for you to answer, so I'm going to put you on the spot. But like yours, like you said, it's set like out of place, out of time, but it touches cornerstones of like current reality. so your question's slightly different, but like, how was that like crafting this world based on like the world we live in currently?
It was a really, I will say, fun process that allowed me to go sort of deep into rabbit holes. So when I'm writing about, you know, because it's sort of a magical realist parallel, I will be writing in the book about, ancient Pompeii, or there's a big chunk that's set in Monterey, California. And they're versions of those worlds, but they're sort of parallel reality versions of those worlds. So it was a lot of fun trying to create a through line um, of magical language that would connect those places and feelings um, through sort of existing geographies, but you would um, create an alternate version of Monterey that is sort of dominated by this very specific cocky fisherman, or like create uh, a world in Pompeii where the sort of guy who's carving penises into the cobblestones. This is a real thing, by the way. People like attribute the first ads to being penises carved in cobblestones. And is this a family program? um, to like drive business to brothels in ancient Pompeii, but like imagining who these sort of larger than life figures are. So putting it in the real world and then kind of like turning up the dial a little bit to connect it into sort of like a big interconnected cinematic universe.
Yeah, definitely. We could talk about penises as much as we want here.
Okay.
As
Great.
much as you want. Irene, you mentioned you were in Canada for like 8 or 9 years. Sorry if I had the years wrong, before you started writing. And I'm curious what it did to you emotionally, physically, metaphysically about going back and like writing about Uganda for this novel. How was it for you writing from the middle of Canada about something thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And I'm only starting now to realize how when you write fiction that is pulling from your own life and you're going back into the past and taking memories and kind of furnishing them with new details for fiction, that later now that I start to remember those memories and they have these details from my fiction, and then I'm confused about what is like, what am I remembering that's real and what have I made up? And it's kind of a mind fuck in a way because it's can I is what I remember actually what truly happened to me, or have I messed my memories kind of so much that I can't tell them apart, what's real and what isn't? But um, I don't think that's so much a problem. I really do like I like I think the thing I love, usually I write short fiction. It's my first love, but I love the democracy of novels. Just how they can be about anything, like ordinary, mundane, and like all you have to do is pay attention to these lives and notice how the light falls on someone's face. And so then it doesn't have to be in London or New York or anywhere. It can be in a rural village that nobody has ever heard about. And if you can make that interesting to a global audience, like that's the job. And that just really fires up my imagination.
Yeah, yeah. I think about place a lot. I in America am from Pennsylvania, but lived most of my life in Arizona, but now live in Colorado. And though I claim all of them as places I'm from, I don't have like an identity to any of them. Which, Jinwoo, I think I don't want to project, but you mentioned all the countries you've lived in, and your novel is a Korean novel set in Oxford, or I forgot exactly the terminology you just used, but I'm curious how all the places you've lived in tie to this novel, but like how you identify as like, are you a blank writer? Like what place do you put into like the title of your life?
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a long answer, but basically, it, Oxford. The reason why I chose Oxford was because I found it as a good medium to channel all the different places I've experienced, whether rural or urban. Also because I did my grad school there, and then while I walk the cobblestones of those streets, I thought to myself, a car chase would be fun here. But you know, in essence, for instance, you know, like the restaurant Soju Club, where all the different spies come together with disguises and then like try to psych each other out while having a meal. Like this place is a sort of an amalgamation of all the different Korean restaurants I've seen and I personally have experienced. You know, like my dad's also run like food joints too, yeah, going from here and there. And it's the place where all the Koreans come to feel a sense of home because food is often one of the most natural and spontaneous gateways into culture, right? It's the one way we sort of feel like like we have a root. And so a lot of it is drawn from my personal experiences, and in that sense, I I do call myself like a Korean Canadian author, but in a way where I think when I started writing this, I've had to sort of deconstruct what that means. Like, what is a Korean? What is a Canadian? And then had to sort of add those identities again, but according to myself, like according to my like my interpretation of it, not just like Korean as like, oh, because I was born in Korea or whatever, but because I choose to be Korean. I don't know. It's a little vague when I talk about it like this, but and the same thing with Canadian too. It's not just because I moved to Canada, but I'm Canadian because now I'm choosing to be Canadian. I'm choosing to be both identities, and that sort of mirrors the journey that the characters have in the book. Essentially, this book really is the story of the diaspora, the Asian diaspora, or any diaspora who find themselves having to adapt to a place that they are strangers to, that they have they struggle to be accepted by, and in the end have to decide like, do I keep these masks or do I take them all off and try to just be myself in this place wherever I am. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, places is a super, I think my favorite thing in books, I like to be transported to somewhere, even if it's a place like I currently live in Denver. And if there's a book that takes me to a different part of Denver that I don't experience in my daily life, I think it's the most magical thing about what literature can do. Um, we have about 20 minutes left, and I want to transition to the writing process. A big part of Debutiful, my my interview style is to know like how the hell did this happen? How did you make this book work? And so a question I really like is just asking, what were the biggest struggles? Like, what were the humps and obstacles that you and your editor or your agent needed to figure out to make this the final like puzzle be put together? Does anyone have any stories that they want to share of like the horrors and successes of writing the actual book?
I feel like the writing is the fun part. The editing was kind of a nightmare for me. My editor was amazing. It was all me. I was the problem. But it's just, I think at a certain point, you've like lived in the world so long that it's kind of like a claustrophobic relationship or something, and you just want out and you were forced to keep going. Um, I I kind of didn't know what I was doing when I was constructing the book, so the ending was a mess and I had to rewrite the last 80 pages. And I got such bad writer's block that I went to hypnotherapy. And so I was like in this old German lady's office, and she was like having me like picture myself like on a beach, like freeing myself from the burden of this book. It totally worked. And Yeah, I think that a lot of the struggle and also the joy of writing is just psychological. It's kind of a battle with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. As a not a writer, I don't know how to write novels. I lied. We don't have 20 minutes, we have 4 minutes. So the three of you do have quick stories that you want to share about the writing process and any humps you got over.
I have one quick one, which is that the book almost did not happen. I joked that I would just put it in the recycling bin behind a publisher's when I was finished my manuscript. I shared it with a friend. She urged me to share it with the publisher. That publisher was like, all in. And then and then they were like, actually, we don't think the book is in the format it needs to be. Um, and my agent swooped in and my agent swooped in and was like, keep going. So I spent another year in development than I thought I was going to. And then that's how a bill becomes a law.
For me, I think the hardest part was that I wrote the book and I just wrote it how I wanted to write it. And I never, I think at any point thought that about the marketing, about promotion, about how people might appreciate it or not until I started submitting it around and the editors were saying, oh, maybe punch up this angle and or maybe like that will make it more marketable if you do this or that. And it just seemed to me so absurd. Just like, but this is the story. This is the story that I have to share. Don't you want to change it so that it would be, sell more books and I hadn't considered that at all. And that was such a big problem for me. Kind of upsetting actually. Until I found the editor who was just like, yes, this is the story. We will make even more of what you want to do. And you kind of forget about all of that. That's fine. That's when I got really excited about the book that it became.
So like Aurora, I was about to bin my book because after like a year of querying, it didn't go anywhere. So at the time, I also was active as a book talker. I still kind of am, but on TikTok. And someone DM'd me and said, like, I saw your video on BTS lyrics analysis, which is weird. But then she basically asked to see the book. And little did I know that was this editor was one of 2 Korean Canadian editors working in Canadian publishing. And then she read it and she immediately got it. And she was like, we need to work on this right now. And that sort of taught me the importance of actually having someone that comes from your culture who looks at your material like that really helps, to get the message across and, also help to shape it so that it is ready for, for publication. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all so much for sharing. Sorry that I mistimed and I had a few more questions, but I think the most exciting thing is now everyone can connect with you on the internet, and I am rapidly grabbing all your links so any of the audience members can just copy and paste those 4 links. I put it in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us, Jinwoo, Iryn, Ella, and Aurora. I love talking to debut writers. Let's connect on the internet and do more interviews together. I'll email you all privately. But everyone out there in the virtual world, please remember you can order these books in the link that Brooklyn Book Fest is putting in. Brooklyn Book Festival is celebrating its 20th year of presenting free literary programming. Today kicks off 9 days of Brooklyn Book Festival events, including a citywide bookend events and the festival's in-person's Children's Day and Festival Day taking place the 20th and 21st in downtown Brooklyn. They're free to attend. But again, please follow these writers on the internet. Please connect with them. Please say hello to them. Please buy their books. You 4 are amazing. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your journey, a little sizzle of who you are. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Do you want to say bye, everyone, to everyone?
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.